I thought it was a very competitive and worthwhile outing against a St Louis side that we know had a wonderful season in their first year in MLS last year. Honestly, the first 15 minutes looked like the players had been trapped in a cage all off-season and were just let out. It was very, very competitive. But as we settled into it, with a side that has got some senior ambitions and also looking at one or two other perspectives of the group, I thought the guys settled into it fabulously well and deserved to be 1-0 up at the break. The second period saw a very young side go out for the most part, and to go 2-0 up was probably more than we expected at that point. But in the end, suspected that they would find their way back into the game, and I think 2-2 was a fair result in the end.
Thank you, Coach. We have a couple of questions already. We're going to kick it off with Tim Sullivan, then Ben Wright, then Valer Sharila.
And Gary, you mentioned the going from a 2-0 lead and ending up drawing. What are your goals? I know we talk about this every preseason, but what are your goals for a match like this? Obviously, less about winning than getting the guys ready for the regular season. What were your, specific, things that you wanted to accomplish with this one?
Well, if you look at the first group that went out there, it very much looked like a more senior group across the board. And in these first 2 weeks, the main focus has been on trying to get ourselves a little bit higher up the field. What does that look like? What do the relationships look like? There's many facets of being a better and more aggressive team. And slowly but surely, I think not only are we seeing some real important connections forming, but physically you're going to grow over the course of the pre-season, and you would hope that becomes a more natural event. We're very, very early in adding 2 or 3 new players, and of course being without some as well. And if you look at the first group, I thought Tyler Boyd's important addition to the group, and of course his involvement in the goal were instrumental in tipping the scales our way in the first half. Without Drew for 3/4 of the game, so we don't see an awful lot there, trying to ease him back into the work. And we have had 1 or 2 issues either coming into pre-season or some issues in pre-season itself. And I think you can see from the makeup of the group that whilst the performance was very, very competitive, and certainly some things I enjoyed out of it and will be pleased to show the guys come Sunday, we've also got probably 5 or 6 very senior players to come back into that group.
All right, Ben, go for it.
Yeah, Gary, that's kind of what you just finished with, is kind of related to my question. Obviously, Shaq Moore, we saw him with the U.S. national team and didn't play today. But then some other guys like, Walker, Annabelle, Hani, and Dan didn't feature. I know Walker had some Achilles issues that he played through last year and was working through those early. Is that related to his absence today, and are the other guys kind of fitness issues, or were they held up for other reasons?
Yeah, totally. Walker's probably the guy that we know most about. You will, from last year. He battled his way through some serious difficulties with his Achilles, and he's had some treatment over the weekend that is going to take a little bit longer to get him back on the field. I think it would be easier to say, with the amount of bodies out or limited, the likes of Sean Davis, 22 minutes, Drew Yearwood, 22 minutes, they shared the half. Those guys have had ailments that have brought them into pre-season, and they're just slowly getting over them. Same can be said for Daniel, Annabelle. They've had little problems that we're looking at and trying to nurse them through. And likewise, Hani, there was some work that he did in the off-season that we thought would give him a better opportunity to be ready for the pre-season. And that wasn't to be the case. He's not far away. He's been training in the group. but I just didn't want to risk him this early with such a limited amount of training time. So you're talking about some really, important players there. Shaq's exclusion from the group was more based around the fact that he's probably in front of the other guys a little bit at the moment. I wanted to see one or two trialists as well in that second period. And there's no two ways that Shaq's going to get a tremendous amount of football come, the start of the season. So a lot of bodies to step in, but some really pleasing relationships already starting to form. And like I said, I thought after the first 15 minutes, which was, a real, sort of blood and thunder 15 minutes, if you like, it showed some real quality, and there were some nice connections and some creativity to come out of it.
Hey Gary, a couple of weeks ago you talked about implementing new ideas that you had thought about in the off-season and bringing them in and introducing them to the guys. It's been a couple of weeks that you guys have worked together on them. What did you see from those new ideas, new style maybe, or those incremental changes? How did you evaluate that today during the game?
Really pleased. The opening exchanges, I thought, really replicated what we were after, a more positive and forceful approach. I've got to say, within 5 minutes of the start, we should have been 1-0 up. Their centre-back was relieved of the ball on the edge of their area with some fantastic pressure, well exerted and calculated pressure. And Randall ends up in a very, very good spot on the edge of the 18-yard box. And I think if we're looking back at the footage, he should have rolled Tyler Boyd in, who has an absolutely clear shot at goal from 12 yards. So, for me, the signs of a really positive attitude, and that's got to be combined with how then we go on and manage the game, how we control the game. And slowly but surely, we've got to start to see the periods and maybe some defining periods in the game for us that we can really focus in on and take more advantage of.
Do we have any other questions from anybody else, or before we do a round of follow-ups? All right, let's go for it, Tim.
Hey, Kerry, I know it probably doesn't mean a whole lot in the first preseason match, but we see Sam wearing the armband there. But what does it say about him and maybe possibly even what he means to the club this upcoming season, that he's already able to kind of grab sort of a leadership role?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't look into it too much, of course, in pre-season games, but I think the fact that, he was given the armband and that was a preempted move. Sam has come into pre-season in absolutely fabulous condition. And I think over a period of years been in the game now, you get to see those personalities and those characters, and you really can work out the individuals who've got something to prove, who come in with some appetite and, have put themselves in a good position to start well. And I've got to say, everything that Sam's done from the moment he's walked through the door from the off-season has been of a very high level. His testing's been very good. His application and his mental fortitude to actually get on the front foot and lead that front line higher up the field. We're gonna rely on that massively. If we can't get pressure through the forward and some of these attacking players, and they're not willing to do that, then it's not going to drag the rest of the team forward. And small sample size today, signs are good, and Sam's definitely in a good place.
Alrighty, Ben, and then Valer.
Yeah, Gary, it looks like Adam played most of the second half, and I'm just kind of curious. I think we saw last year he made a big push in preseason and really impressed, and then obviously was signed to a homegrown deal. He's still young. What are you expecting from him this season, and how do you kind of work on integrating him into the first team without putting too much pressure on a guy who's, let's be honest, he's still a kid?
Yeah. I think there's a number of guys in the group, Ben, who are taking advantage of some omissions. And it's the old adage of, one door closes and you've got a problem and the other one opens up for someone. And Adem is a prime example of that. It looks to me like he's just starting to fill that frame out a little bit. He's put on some muscle and some weight, not in fat, but in muscle in the off-season as he starts to develop into what will be his first signs of being a man, He's working out of that adolescent period in his world, and he's moving into a more physical one. The expectations for him are very, very similar, I would suspect, in my mind, to last year. His pre-season has been a very productive one so far. He stood up to the challenge very decently today, but he's going to get the majority of his minutes, if not all of them, down in Huntsville. He needs that period of time to make that transition, but this pre-season window will be a great opportunity for him to settle into this, what will be a bit of a defining season for him, coming out of youth football into men's football. So we hope we can put him in a good place, but primarily he's gonna be looking at his development gains down in Huntsville, I would suspect.
Gary, kind of going off that question, other than a Dem, we saw Joey Skinner be included today, as well as an academy player and a bunch of trialists. Any from those younger players, anybody catch your attention? Did you learn anything new from any of them today?
I don't think anything new, Valère. The guys are here because we see them as really good prospects. What has been noticeable for guys like Joey and Isaiah, you can put a Dem into that category. Big Forster is with us as well, the big centre forward. These guys are learning along the way here. And yes, there have been mistakes in pre-season, but it's all part of a process for them to grow. At this point, I still see a lot of those guys getting that experience where they should be, which is in an environment where they can continue to make some of those mistakes at not a great cost. It's a development arena, MLS Next Pro. It's a step up, and it's a very challenging league with some of the quality that, in and around similar ages. But we're talking about very young guys here. I think Joey's still only 20 himself. Isaiah and Adem are 18. So it's very, very helpful to see and start to see some of these guys step forward. But there's still a lot of work to do for them. Let's not be trying to push them too early. Part of the process is making sure that they can continue to gain confidence and to improve, and not put them in a position where they're going to get shot down and maybe start questioning themselves.
Yeah, Gary, you kind of briefly touched on Forster there. I just wanted to ask about him a little bit more. You don't have, outside of Sam and Teal, you don't have a ton of options at striker. Do you think that he'll be able to contribute to the first team this year, or are you guys looking more at a year in Huntsville to kind of see how he develops?
I honestly think, again, Ben, based on what I'm seeing right now, it's going to be primarily Huntsville. He has all of the physical qualities. He's a very, very genuine lad. He's shown in his testing, he's in a good physical place, athletic place. But there's a lot to learn, and he's still very raw with his techniques and his individual quality. So, again, it's not to say that one or two of these guys won't step out of that group come summertime. Of course, we'll keep very, very close tabs on what's going on there. And in fact, I think Joey will spend most of his time up with us training and get his football down in Huntsville. But right at this moment in time, I think, if you look at our group, the guys that will occupy that world, of course, will be Sam and will be Teal. And if there are any problems outside of that, I mean, Tyler Boyd's as good an option as any up there. His experience, he's capable. So we've got other players that may be able to fill that role and have seen it before. At this point, those guys certainly need to just keep getting good games, good minutes under their belt in Huntsville.